Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, January 22nd, 2013 meeting of the Currituck County Board of Commissioners to order. At 6 p.m. we had a work session with the ABC Board, and at 6:30 the attorney apprised us of our license agreement between the county and the Whalehead Trust for adoption at our next meeting. On the agenda, going to have some changes, but I guess we'll do the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. We have Keith Ham from Powell's Point Christian Church. Could you lead us in a prayer and Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely, I will. Thank you very much for having me.
Sir.
Father, we thank you so much for the opportunity to gather here tonight. We thank you that we can come before you and ask for your blessing upon this meeting. Lord, I ask that your wisdom would prevail, that, Father, you would help each of the commissioners, everyone involved, to make good decisions, Lord. And we thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ. We're thankful that we can come to you in his name in prayer. And we do that just now. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. On the agenda, I would like to ask for some changes. The first change would be to, under new business, to strike item B. Under board appointments, to strike item 8. In the consent agenda, on item 7, the resolution authorizing ABC Board to retain profits for new construction debt service and add to that waive the permit fees, and to strike item 10 from the consent agenda. I have a motion for approval. Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, our first public hearing and action is PB 1224, Chamber of Commerce, request to amend the
Mr.
Unified...
Chairman, you skipped public comments.
Did I? Oh, my apologies, public. It's time for the comments. We have one person signed up, Mr. Richard Schroeder. Yes, sir. Would you like to come forward and speak?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ask you to please restate your name and address for the record, sir.
Excuse me. My name is Richard Schrader. I live at 141 Greenview Road in Moyock. And I'm here tonight to make you aware of an activity that's going on in the county. I am the vice president of the Currituck County Arts Council. The Arts Council is a group that supports arts of all kinds in the county, have done so for a long time. We have, thanks to your board, a wonderful gallery in the Moyock Library, which has a continual exhibits that go on during the year, several. And my purpose of coming tonight is to make you and the folks behind me aware of an opening that's coming up on Friday, February 1st. In the past, we have done all of our shows have involved the arts of the county originated in the area, the county and the near area. We have on February 1st a show coming in put on for us by the Hampton Roads Naval Museum. The title of the show is Picture Perfect, the United States Navy in Panoramic Photography. It's going to be a wonderful show, a historic show for the county. Very interesting, I think, particularly to people who might have any connections with the military, which is quite extensive. And so my purpose of being here is to invite all of you and all of you folks back here and your friends and neighbors to come to the library on Friday, February 1st, 7 o'clock for the opening. And the show will last from then until April 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone that didn't sign up that wishes to speak in the public comments? Hearing none, I'll close the public comments and move now properly to the public hearings. Public hearing and action on PB 1224, Chamber of Commerce, request to amend the new Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 4, Use Standards, and Chapter 5, Development Standards, to allow for additional temporary signage for special events. Mr. Woody?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This text amendment was submitted by the Chamber of Commerce and is intended to allow additional temporary signage for special events. And as you can see on the slide, our current ordinance allows 10 off-premise signs for a special event not to exceed 32 square feet in size. Earlier this year, in 2012, the Chamber of Commerce established a committee of different citizens, primarily made up of people associated with nonprofit organizations. That committee met several times over the course of the summer and into early fall. After those meetings, the committee came to the conclusion that they would like to recommend additional off-premise signage for special events to help advertise and promote those events and promote their messages. So what's before you tonight is a recommendation for an increase in special event signage from the 10 signs at 32 square feet to 40 signs at 6 square feet and 10 signs at 32 square feet. So that gives you basically 50 signs, 40 of which are small and 10 of which are larger. Or you can elect not to use the larger signs and just have 60 small signs, 6 square feet. So what this is a means for the nonprofits to promote their local events. I'll also note that when the committee considered this, and this is in the amendment language in your packet, is in order to have a special event and to take advantage of this signage allowance, the organization is required to get what's called a temporary use permit. There is a permit requirement, so you just can't go out and start putting up signs. You got to come in and get a permit through the county to do this. And the other thing that's included in this amendment is the time period for which it's allowed. The committee agreed to allow these signs to come out 15 days prior to the event and to be removed 10 days after the event. And then no more than four events can be held at a parcel in any given year. And we exempted the county parcels because most events happen on county parcels. But there are some limits in place to limit the duration of the signage and the how frequently the signs can be out, and of course there's a permit requirement. So what's before you tonight is consideration of this amendment with those requirements. And I'll note one last thing before moving off this is in the back of this packet there's a brief blurb about having landscaping for shopping centers. That has nothing to do with the temporary event signage. When we put the new UDO together, we inadvertently left that requirement out. Those that were on the board several years ago remember adding the landscaping for shopping center signage. We're just putting that back in. So that is staff. That's not the Chamber of Commerce. The Planning Board heard this request at their December 2012 meeting, and they did recommend approval as prepared. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Woody, could you briefly let the board know why this was undertaken? Maybe Mr. Bass, when he comes forward, can do it as well. But from the county's perspective, why the change was in order?
I think it was primarily initiated because when the nonprofits were advertising these events, they were traditionally putting out more than 10 signs, and the county was collecting those signs because it violated the ordinance. And I think the nonprofits feel like this is a means by which they can effectively get their message out and advertise their events. And I'm sure Mr. Bass will obviously elaborate on that as well.
All right, anyone? Yes, sir.
Okay, the committee you were talking about, they had two different scenarios. Was there a preference from their standpoint as to which one of those two would best fit their need, sign sizes?
Probably the best way to characterize the committee is I think that many of the groups like to deal with the 6 square foot signs because they're easier to put out. I think some of the groups, like the Currituck Club, for example, they like the larger signs. They put fewer larger signs out. So that's kind of why you have the option. The committees that wanted the smaller signs wanted to be able to put more out, but then there was definitely some folks that wanted to have the larger signs and wanted to maintain that. So it doesn't. I mean, the ordinance is written where you can choose either one of those options.
Right.
So it's not an either or. It probably should be and or.
Okay, yeah. That was my next question. So in other words, they're not set in stone to either or.
No.
Okay,
No,
great.
That's a choice each group can make for their needs.
And one of the things, because one of the problems has been clutter, signs all over the place, and then they're just left, and cars knock them down, the wind blows them over, and when they mow grass, they get torn up.
Kind of like campaign
So,
season.
huh?
Like campaign season.
Yeah. So there is a permit that you have to obtain. However, there's no fee involved in it. But what it does is it holds whoever's putting the signs out accountable
Take 'em up.
to clean them up. And then in the event that we just have gross, just ignoring it, gross, they may not be allowed to have the permit going forward. So it puts the burden on them to not only put them out, but to clean them up and clean up the corridor some, as people have asked us to do. So that was another important point. Anyone else? This time I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm going to call on Mr. Bass first, since he was the sponsor through the chamber, and let him share a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Josh Bass. I'm the president of the Currituck Chamber of Commerce, and we are the ones that submitted this proposal, but it really was a group effort between us, the Coin Jock Ruitans, the Animal Lovers Assistance League, Relay for Life, the Wet Paint Society, the Arts Council, and several other groups that all got together, because we are typically the groups that have events that put out these types of signs. And what had been traditionally happening is, you are correct, we had traditionally been putting out more than the 10 signs the ordinance allows. It's a tough county to get the word out without doing that. There's no central TV station, radio station, so signage is one of many means we use, in addition to radio, Facebook advertising, email blast. Signage is one major way that we are able to kind of get the word out throughout the county. And it's, tough if you're going to cover Corolla, Knott's Island, places like Tolls Creek Road, Grandy Back Road, to get all of these signs within 10. So that either 50 with the 10 larger or 60 smaller signs kind of allows us to cover back roads and subdivisions as well. The intention here isn't that, you're going to see 60 signs on the highway. What we all said is, we put them up in neighborhoods, people's yards, things like that. But this gives us a vehicle to do kind of what we've been doing. As a group, we were concerned about sign clutter as well, so we did shorten the length of time, was the proposal, from 30 days prior, which is what it is now, to 15 days. We did, want to compromise some on that. We were concerned about the clutter, so we felt like if we were going to ask for a greater number of signs in the ordinance, we could certainly live with less time. And then we also self-imposed the permit, because we do want it to have some teeth in it. All these groups are concerned about the way the county looks, and we want it to be attractive to people that live here and visitors. So those were all of our concerns. I'm certainly happy to take any questions that you have, and we've worked on this over the past year, and this was kind of what we felt was a good consensus of the group. But any questions you have, we certainly will
Anyone
try
have
to
any
answer.
questions of Mr. Bass?
Just one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Mr. Bass, there was a consensus among everybody on your committee to 60 signs, et cetera. I mean, this is something, and that was given to the planning board, and you all talked it through, and so everybody, it was a cohesive statement.
Correct.
Okay.
When we held a vote, it was unanimous within the room. There may be a member or so of the committee that has concerns about that, and if they want to address it tonight, but when we took a vote on it, it was unanimous at that
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, anyone else? Nothing else. Mr. Bass, thank you. Next, I'm going to go with John Murray.
John Murray, 148 Coin Jock Development Road, scenic downtown Coin Jock. Mr. Chairman, I'm here representing the Coin Jock Ruitans. We have two major events in the county during the course of the year, wildlife show in September and a Christmas craft show in December. And we fully support the Chamber's recommendations and are willing to do what we got to do to help with it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming out. Carol. I am sorry. English language gives me a hard time.
Oh, my.
Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Carol Liu.
Okay.
Address 806 Bells Island Road, Currituck. I'm here as a representative of Currituck Kids, and Currituck Kids wants to lend their support to this sign ordinance as it is presented.
Thank you.
That's all.
Thank you very much. Next is Ms. Ginger Sykes. Ask you please give your name and address as well.
I'm Ginger Sykes. I live at 111 Mallard Drive on Bells Island, Currituck. And I just wanted to hope that you all bundled up as you came in tonight because it was so cold out there, and that you do that on the way out. Just imagine if this had been part of those 15 days and you had gotten through work today and had to go out and put out signs in this sort of condensed period of time. All I'm asking for is that we maybe juggle around not the number of signs, but just the number of days before the event that they can go out and the number of days after, and maybe extend it as I put in a little calendar so you could help visualize it here. I hope all of you have this. And the big signs, by the way, are about the size of the one that's on the front of our flyer here. And unless you're quite a strong woman, you can't move those by yourself. So it takes two people to coordinate that. And so I think it will take to get the larger signs from the state line all the way down to the bridge, for example, probably a total of 3 days with after-work manpower that will be available to either hire or come as a volunteer. So I just would like to ask you if you'd please reconsider the allocation of days. I think Mr. Woody has already sent out an email asking for 8 days after the event, which would include a weekend. And all this is doing is saying that would be great. And if you could, please extend it back to maybe 21 days before the event rather than just 15, so that you include another weekend in case you have inclement weather. A lot of these events take place in the spring, as you know, and we can get some pretty powerful storms coming in then. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sykes. John Snowden.
John Snowden, 180 Maple Road. First, let me say that I wholeheartedly support the various nonprofit organizations in our community. During the time in which I published our community newspaper, I always provided free space at no charge in which nonprofit groups could publish the details of their events, whether it was in the calendar, whether it was news releases that they presented or anything like that. With that being said, the text amendment, as Mr. Bass and the committee has proposed, will result in a proliferation of temporary signage along our corridor and an associated proliferation of litter. At the last meeting, there was a discussion, and this was the planning board meeting, or actually the last commissioners meeting, there was a discussion about an applicant seeking a directional sign for his business. Both Commissioners Martin and Commissioners O'Neill cited county efforts to clean up the corridor by placing a moratorium on all-premise sign, meaning the larger billboards. I brought some props tonight. Like I told the school board last time I came to talk to them about plastic bags, beware speakers bringing props. The first prop I brought is this sign right here. These are the signs that they want to put out, this size sign. This is a Relay for Life sign that was picked up out of the ditch in front of the bank at Moyock Commons. It's right there on the corner. I rode by that every day going to Norfolk to my new job, and I saw it sitting there, and it was litter. It had long gone past its purpose of notifying people what was going on. This sign was picked up prior to the original sign meeting that this committee had at the library, and I presented to them that night. This is a Chamber of Commerce sign, another one. This was picked up off the roadside just at Maple, and it was picked up 2 or 3 months after the fact. In my barn, I have a large Bark in the Park sign that I picked up while I was out picking up election signs for a couple of candidates. It was at the intersection of Barco. It was laying down on the ground. One of the legs were broken. And those are pretty big signs, and they have money invested in those. So you see there's a series of actions here, or that these signs are staying out longer than they need to stay out. They don't have any idea where they put them. So the signs will be placed, these signs will be placed in the right-of-way. There's nothing in this ordinance that states they can't be placed in the right-of-way, which is between the telephone poles. That is against the law in the state of North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Attorney. Gretchen Byram at DOT said they're against the law, but they don't enforce it because she doesn't have enough people to go out and pick up signs. Mr. Bass was one of the largest perpetrators. As fast as he could put those signs out, Mr. Woody's staff was picking them up. And there's no penalty. There's no teeth. The only way these small signs can work is if they are placed in the right-of-way at the intersections, and that's against the law, plain and simple. I'll remind you that the Board of Commissioners cannot create ordinances which are in violation of, run contrary to, or circumvent the North Carolina general statutes. I'm here to offer a compromise. I request that language be inserted into the proposed. First off, if they want 100 signs, if they're on private property off the right-of-way, I don't care. I'll let them put one in my field on Maple Road. But when they're on the right-of-way, they're in violation of the law. I can't do that for my business. But I would like the text amendment to include these. Reference to the North Carolina general statutes so that the applicants for this permit understand that they can't put these signs in the right-of-way, that it's a violation of law. And that will be a violation of their permit. I believe there should be a provision requiring the sign applicants to post a performance bond with temporary use permit. A bond is necessary to ensure compliance because if the only punishment for violating this law is a slap on the wrist, they don't care. They're going to put more signs out. They're going to exceed the number. They're going to put them in the places they're not allowed to, and they're going to stay out. That will also ensure prompt removal of all signs after the event because if they have to go and pick up 50 signs to get their $50 back or whatever the fee is, they're going to make sure all 50 signs are up. Mr. Bass will argue, or he argued at the planning board meeting, that these groups don't have budgets to post a bond. I would suggest or argue that the performance bond could be based on the number of signs the group puts out, which is directly related to their advertising budget for the organizations. Prior to placing the signs, and as part of the use permit, I'd request that the organizations have a sign plan so that they know where their signs were put out, they know where to go get them. The problem you have is we give 10 signs to a volunteer and they go get put out, and this is what happens in campaigns. And then the signs stay out long after the campaign's over or the event's over because no one in the leadership of the organization knows where the signs were put. So any violation or variance from the temporary use permit should result in revocation of the permit and revocation of the right to go out and do that. Because we have litter. It litters our corridor. At the meeting in June, Mr. O'Neill, you were there, I suggested placing larger signs in the communities in Moyock, Currituck, Shawboro that were community signage so that these groups could put larger banners up there because those small signs cannot be read at 55 miles an hour within the Currituck Highway, not with the clutter of everything else going on. The community signs could consist of 4x8 sheets of plywood that could then have a banner hung on it for Animal Lovers Assistance League, a banner hung on it for the Ruritans. And those groups could be responsible for those. I would donate money to see those built just to keep our corridor clean. And tell them how to get the cheapest possible banners, the least expensive ones to put on those signs. But I think that's a more proactive solution than just throwing more signs to the wind. And I would ask respectfully that y'all consider those changes to this ordinance because basically you've let the fox write the rules on the hen house. There's no teeth in this ordinance as Mr. Bass wrote it. There's no accountability. And I think if you make them keep a list and turn in a plan of where they're going to put the signs at, that has incentive for them to go back and get the signs and get their deposit back. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Woody, when we were in the group discussing this, we discussed about the right-of-way and the inability of being able to put the signs in the site triangle, and I believe that's going to be part of the permit when people sign to tell them what the rules are. Is that not correct?
It is. A big part of the permit was to give staff the ability to provide the information and rules to the applicant.
State laws and
state
so
laws.
forth.
I know the introduction to our sign ordinance generally says you can't have signage in the right-of-way. We can certainly make sure that's more prominent in the application material at a minimum.
Okay.
Was there any discussion about the banner concept like Mr. Snowden was talking about? I mean, was that even a thought in the idea?
There was some discussion during the committee meetings, but the majority of the committee members still preferred to have some ability to put out their own temporary signage.
The problem with the community signage that we had was one of the things we talked about was putting them at the trash sites in different places, but it was just I think the staff is still continuing to explore that some. But the fact of the matter is people are putting out the 60 to 100 signs regardless. And it was hoped that with having to sign a permit and understanding if you don't abide by the rules, you may not get a permit next time, that would make people clean them up. So we didn't do a performance bond, as Mr. Snowden had asked, but the fact that you're getting a permit, and if you don't abide by the terms of the permit, could void your ability to
Your next function.
the next function. And if there's just blatant violation, then guess what? You wouldn't be able to get the next permit. So that was decided in lieu of asking people, the nonprofits, to put up a bond. And so far as the signs littering the road, this is supposed to try to help make the people responsible go back and clean them up. And the thought was the nonprofits, the more they do, the less the taxpayers have to do. That's kind of like volunteer taxation. You're not compelled by the government to go eat a chicken dinner for the animal lovers, but you certainly can donate your money to go to it, and then they put it in the animal shelter or the Relay for Life. You're not compelled to go to Relay for Life, but you can certainly go and donate money, and that takes some of the burden off the taxpayer. So I certainly support the nonprofits. I know everybody on the board does, and the community has shown it when I go to these events. Now, if that's not the perfect number, I don't know what the perfect number is. We just tried to do something to put some accountability into the signage. It's not perfect, but I don't know that everything we do is. I'm pretty sure it's not.
Better than what we had.
Yeah, so if it creates an issue that whatever, we can readdress it again, but at least it's a start. The nonprofits support it, the chamber support it, and I think the community will ultimately, as long as they abide by the rules. So that's what was decided. We have one more. Denise Hall. I guess that's you.
That's me.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I'm Denise Hall. I live at 174 Old Jury Road, Moyock, and I'm on the board of directors for the Animal Lovers Assistance League. I am in complete agreement with Mr. Bass and the rules they've set forth. The only thing that I would ask, like Ginger Sykes, is that don't extend the number of days, but shorten the days on the end and add more on the front. And that gives people a little more time to be prepared for it, and hopefully people will pick up their signs quicker. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Woody, that was requested. Do you have any comment on that request that we got via email?
Basically, you've got a 25-day period in which signs can be out. Right now, you can get them out 15 days ahead of the event and 10 days after the event. The only thing I would caution the board is if you shorten the time in which you have to take them down after the event, you should make sure you at least give groups through the next weekend to get them down. Because I think if you have an event on a Saturday, I don't know that it's realistic for volunteers to be out there on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday picking up signs. So that would be my cautionary note on that, is give at least, and that's my email was, you need to at least give 8 days on the back end to get somebody to the next Sunday, to the following Sunday, to get signs down.
Well, if you move those 2 days from the back end and put them to the front end, you still have the same.
It'd be 17 on the front end.
17 days and 8 on the back end.
Whereas now it's 15 on the front end and 10 on the back end, yeah.
At least it still gives the 25 days, and it does move it a little bit further.
Yeah, gives a little more time.
Okay, well, that's all we had signed up to speak. And this time if anyone has any more questions, Mr. Woody. If not, we would, if you want to make that modification of the 2 days, you would need to do that as part of your motion. So I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve, I guess it's PB 1224, with the modifications that Mr. Woody talked about, where I guess we're making it 8 days on the back and 17 on the front. Is that right?
That would give folks until the Sunday following the event to get the signs removed.
So 17 on the front, 8 on the back. I make a motion to approve with those modifications.
I'll second Mr. Petrie's motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you. At this time, we're going to recognize Miss Charlene Dowdy for her, let me count all these years up, 37 years of service as Register of Deeds. So, Ms. Dowdy, if you come forward, and board, if y'all would join me down front. All right, Ms. Dowdy, we wanted to, as a board, recognize your years of service as the Register of Deeds. So it's presented in recognition of Charlene Younts Dowdy for her dedicated service to the citizens of Currituck County as Deputy Register of Deeds for 5 years and Register of Deeds for 32 years, from 1975 to 2012. So turn around here and smile pretty for the camera. I'm going to take your picture. Like to say anything, please do.
I would like for it to go on record that I am the first Register of Deeds ever to retire in Currituck County. I have the most years of any Register of Deeds, and from 1692 to 1975 we filled up 148 books. When I retired, we had over almost 2,000 books.
Wow.
So all those years before, we filled up more during my term than we did at the beginning of the county. And I just want that to go on record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
1 second, if I could say something on a personal note. Almost 32 years ago, this woman issued me my marriage license. And that is one license that hasn't been revoked, suspended, or canceled to this date. Thank you.
David, I was going to say the same thing, except 42 years ago.
You got me. Trumped. I'm trumped.
Thank you, Mr. Dowdy.
Maybe that was 41 years ago.
42 years. That's almost.
Maybe that was 41. I better do my arithmetic here.
That's almost as old as long as I am old.
I'm old as dirt, son. That's what it is.
Item B is discussion of beach rescue services agreement. Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, we actually have Sylvia Wolf with the Crawler Fire and Rescue Squad, Inc. They're the contractor. What we're requesting tonight is a 2-year contract to continue the lifeguard services with Crawler. The 2-year contract puts them on the same cycle as our budget. We're getting ready to go into a 2-year budget. And I think they have a presentation to do on the service, and they've asked in the budget for next year, I think they want to tweak a little bit of the service they're providing and actually add additional coverage during the peak of the season. So I'd like to turn that over to Sylvia.
All right, thank you. Do I? Okay. Before we jump into the meat and potatoes thing, I wanted to give you all a quick glimpse, although 10 PowerPoint slides won't really do it a whole lot of justice. However, I wanted to kind of summarize who we are and what we do on a daily basis. We have a very unique organization on the Northern Outer Banks. We maintain the most stringent pre-employment standards on the Northern Outer Banks, well above the recommendations of the United States Life Saving Association, of whom we maintain a professional relationship with, a 70 to 75% return rate, which we think is pretty good for seasonal employment. We are the only Northern Outer Banks agency to work hand in hand with local EMS providers so that we can provide exceptional and cohesive patient care. Specifically, we allow our EMTs to practice under Currituck County providership as EMTs. No other Outer Banks agency can claim to do the same. In my very unbiased opinion, we have a really amazing group of young people representing you in this county on the beach. You have motivated, dedicated, most of them college students, and they're stopping by here only briefly before graduating and beginning a career. Our alumni include the likes of doctors, nurses, therapists, educators, coaches, graphic designers, actors, one of whom starred in a Fancy Feast commercial during the Super Bowl last year, business owners, Navy SEALs, paratroopers, Coast Guard rescue swimmers, and a couple who double as EMT staff for you in Currituck County. I think we attract a really high caliber of personnel because our program is intense, it's challenging, it's innovative, and it's opportunistic. As far as the stats that you're looking at, minor meds are situations that don't require further medical care, your cuts, your bruises, your superficial sunburns. Major medicals are ones that do require further care, and we send them to a medical facility either via ambulance or privately operated vehicle. Individual communications can be in the form of a warning, an explanation of beach conditions or rules, answering questions, etc. All of these we're pretty proactive about ensuring positive outcomes. I didn't include our competition stats because while it's something we're very good at, it's not defined in our standard operating guidelines. But we've held the championship title for the local Olympics since 2002, and we've also maintained the highest points per competitor average in every regional competition that we've attended in our division. And our region extends from Virginia Beach down to Florida, so we put on an impressive show. We are the only Outer Banks agency to offer any kind of kids program. The two programs that allow us to demonstrate a really high level of proactive lifeguarding and public intervention are our junior lifeguard program and our safety education and aquatic learning program, which I'll get to next. Our junior lifeguard program is one that attracts both Currituck and Dare County residents and vacationers. Its participation has doubled every year since its inaugural season. We max out at about 30 participants in an effort to keep our ratio of instructors to participants safe. It's a 4-day camp. Kids learn CPR, first aid. They become familiar with rescue equipment, physical fitness, general ocean safety. We've already begun receiving applications for this year's program. Another pro to this program is it allows our agency to interact with local Corolla businesses. We support the Buy Local campaign by everything that we do as far as visiting local agencies and who provides the food, our local vendors. Okay, and this is our safety, education, and aquatic learning, or our SEAL program. Once again, people start in January calling to reserve a spot. This program started in 2005. This program is hugely supported by the community, most specifically the Whalehead Property Owners Association in Currituck County, who claim our top sponsorship spots, but so many businesses assist us financially and with in-kind donations. And the sponsorship helps to keep this program free of charge to allow for the maximum participation. Kids get a quick lesson on rip currents, general beach safety, what to do if they get lost, when to call 911, and the Wildlife Education Center across the street sends somebody over to do instruction on aquatic animals in the marine environment. It's the Corolla Ocean Rescue staff that coordinates and instructs these programs. They maintain our website. They keep us up on the Facebook page. They do the advertising. They interact interact with the public on a daily basis. We offer these opportunities to allow our staff to use skills that they come with and education that they've maintained elsewhere and apply them to further the ocean rescue purpose. I think that's a unique thing about our organization, and they are an incredibly, incredibly amazing group of young people. And therefore, I'd like to invite you to the beach. Come ride with me anytime. I've offered that every single time I've been up here. No one's taken me up on it yet. So I'm looking to see who forges that initial action. The dates that you might enjoy are posted here, and I didn't put on here our fundraiser, our 5K Scoot the Scoot. That is May 22nd, I think, but it's all on our website, which is at the bottom there. And please, if you ever have any questions about anything we do, you're more than welcome to contact me anytime. And having covered all that, meat and potatoes time, and Barry wants to talk.
I'm Barry Richmond, the president of Corolla Fire and Rescue, for those of you that don't know me. First of all, she's incredible. All of these education programs are her brainchildren, so it has raised the image of Corolla Ocean Rescue tenfold. Keep in mind, as Dan could probably tell you, that the county advertises the location where the lifeguard stands are going to be, and I can guarantee you that if you contact any of the realtors, those are the houses that fill up first, near the stands, and that's why people come here, because of the service and the image of Corolla Ocean Rescue. So it's real important for the county, I think. We're asking for a 2-year contract. The difference between the requested contract and the present one, the one that just lapsed at the end of December, are twofold. One is there's a slight increase in money, which I'll tell you why in a minute. And secondly, there's been a change in how many stands will be manned, so that we can put up an additional stand in the dead of summer in the most popular times to make the service even better. We're asking for $17,000 more this year than we did last year, and primarily last year we kept our budget on fuels at $2.50 a gallon. Well, we know that doesn't exist anymore. So there's like $7,000 or $8,000 more in fuel. $6,800. The workman's comp insurance has doubled. So instead of paying $125 an employee, we're paying $250 an employee. So that's like almost $6,000.
That was a statewide change.
That's a statewide change, right? So there really isn't any fluff in what we're asking for, and we're looking for your approval for this 2-year contract. Thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
Ms. Scanlon, you have any comments?
Well, I will note there is a third change to the service contract compared to what the contract was last year. We have, for several years now, we have contracted directly with Corolla Fire and Rescue for a beach cleanup piece. That is being lifted from this contract. I will be bringing to you at a future meeting a sister contract that we will continue to provide those services, but we'll do it from a separate vendor. The amount that supported that is no longer in their contract. This will allow Corolla to focus strictly on what they're very good at, is the lifeguard program. And certainly we'll be happy to answer any questions. Other than that, the contract is basically the same language as it was last year, and I'll be certainly happy to answer any questions you might have about the contract or the service.
Questions?
Just basically a comment. You were talking about the educational piece. Mm-hmm. You know how, both of you know how important the educational piece is to us right now with all the things that are going on. We would appreciate anything that you can do as a sidebar to help us with that. I realize your main core focus and function is saving lives and protecting life and property, or life especially. But any way that you can see fit within your programs to help us with the education of the visitors that come to the Outer Banks is greatly appreciated. And rest assured, we'll remember it and be glad to help you any kind of way we can. But if you can help us out in that arena, any way you can do that, we would certainly appreciate it.
Mr. Idlett, we are perhaps the most proactive organization
I know that.
on the Outer Banks relative to that.
I know that. But again, you were complimenting on all of her out-of-the-box thinking. If you can come up with some more out-of-the-box thinking that will help us in that arena, please feel free to
Specifically,
do
and I
that.
don't think that'll be a problem.
Thank you.
We'd be glad to.
Definitely do that.
Any other questions? I will ask the county manager, I assume you're recommending approval?
Yes, sir, I am.
The money's allocated, and it will be coming from?
It will be allocated. This will be, well, a portion of it is allocated now. The remainder will be allocated during the budget, but it's Oxford tax funded, supports this project or contract.
Okay. We need a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion to approve as written, and also thank you guys for what you do.
I will second that motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And Ms. Wolf, as I look at the picture up there, and then I look at myself, and I remember why I don't take you up on your day at the beach.
You make it a consistent
In the
visit.
summer, yeah. I'll be glad to come in January, but summertime, I don't think so.
It only takes 2 weeks.
Just
Yeah.
up there, don't get a wetsuit, get a dry suit.
Yeah. So thank you very much. Old business is consideration of an action PB 1220 Harbinger Land and Timber, request for conditional zoning from agricultural A and residential to conditional district residential of 84 acres in Moyock on the west side of Pointers Road and north side of Elrod Road. And Mr. Woody, I know this is on for action. Has there been any changes or any additional information since the last meeting?
There's been a change, and I want to share a little additional information based on comments from the last meeting. What I have before you is a revised site plan. This is the zoning exhibit that you'll be considering tonight for action. Probably the principal change is that the R zoning district, or the conditional district R zoning district, has been moved 500 feet north of its most southern boundary. So again, it's hard to see a line, but you can see the dark line is the southern boundary of the zoning request. At your last when this application was filed, that boundary was 500 feet south of that. So they've basically shrunk the size of the rezoning request from 84 acres to 46.75 acres. So about half. And I think that is certainly something you want to consider as you deliberate tonight. Within that zoning request, the CDR, there's approximately 40 residential lots that will be created in that if the zoning is approved and the subdivision moves forward. There are already 10 lots you see there that are minor subdivision lots that were already created and exist, and they can exist in the agricultural zoning district. Another thing that came up at the last meeting I wanted to share, and I don't know that this is probably more of a preliminary plat issue, because you know that when a subdivision comes through, in order for this board to approve lots for a preliminary plat, they've got to have every lot has to have an approved perk test. So they've got to be suitable for wastewater at the preliminary plat. But I did want to share, I brought a copy of the soils map, the Currituck County soils map, and the areas in red are lands that are not suitable for septic systems. The area in yellow kind of appears as white or yellow. The cross hatching, those are areas that are marginal for septic systems, which is, and then the areas in green are areas indicated as suitable for septic, on-site septic. So you can see there certainly are some poor soils out there. Those tend to be at the fringes or around the edges of this zoning request. So I wanted to share that. There was a lot of discussion of that at the last meeting. And the last thing I wanted to share is we had a lot of discussion about lot sizes and compatibility and things. And what we did as staff is we just drew, and we just picked randomly, just picked a 1 mile radius, just drew a mile circle around the request. And you see that's the dark red line that looks like a circle. Within that circle, there are 238 parcels. The average lot size is 11.87 acres. The median lot size is 1.45 acres. Within that circle, there's 99 lots that are 1 acre or less in size. There's 47 lots that are between 1 and 3 acres in size. There's 34 lots that are between 3 and 10 acres in size, and there's 58 lots that are greater than 10 acres in size. So I wanted to give the board just kind of a feel for what kind of lot sizes exist within 1 mile of this rezoning request. That's all the information I have to present tonight.
What was approximate percentage of 1 acre or less?
Within that 1 mile radius, about 41% is 1 acre or less. 41% of lots.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
There's been significant talk about some type of vegetative buffer between the lot lines, the northern part of the neighbor's property, and the southern part of the proposed subdivision. And has that been addressed?
There's an adjoining property to the south.
But that's not being
there's not
rezoned.
a way to put a buffer on that property line because
rezoning request.
Yeah, because it's not incorporated in the zoning, so there's not a way to condition that as a buffer. If the subdivision request comes forward, which could incorporate all the land, at that point, through the preliminary plat process, you could incorporate some sort of buffer potentially. But there's not a means to do that through the zoning request because that land in question is no longer part of the zoning request. If that makes sense.
Mr. Woody, how about between the proposed residential area and the other parcel that now has been taken off the table that remains agricultural? Is there not something in the UDO that requires a buffer there between a residential neighborhood and a agricultural subpiece?
If the residential neighborhood is developing, they have to establish a buffer.
Okay.
How wide?
50 feet.
So
that's a buffer that residential has to provide to existing agricultural operations. That's protect the agricultural.
So there would be a 50-foot buffer there, and it would be required vegetative. I mean, would we require pine trees planted, or
half of it has to be buffered, which pine trees would probably be a good option or something like that. But again, that's a buffer that exists between a proposed residential subdivision and existing land under cultivation.
Right. Let me ask one more question. What is the number of lots on this 84 acres that could be developed as it stands versus what's being required?
If there wasn't a rezoning request, Mr. Hyman can probably answer. He's probably ran the numbers on that, the applicant's representative, but I would guess around 40-something through the agricultural zoning district. Because remember, in Currituck County, in our ag zoning district, you've got to set aside a significant amount of open space. But remember, within whatever's left outside of the open space, you can cluster down smaller lots within that. So in our zoning, you're able to pull density off of lands that otherwise remain as open space. So you probably still get more than 40 lots on this as an agricultural zone land.
So even though it's agriculture, they'd still be able to, under the existing rules, they'd still be able to cluster it down to small lots?
Yes.
And that's under the existing rules?
Yes. The old and the new UDO. Again, the idea is that you're setting aside open space that can be protected for environmental reasons or conservation, or better yet, you can set aside open space that can continue to be farmed. And then the farmer's allowed to get density off of that land that's otherwise farmed or protected.
So the southernmost portion is not requested to be rezoned?
It is not.
And I rode by there today, and I noticed there's already activity, houses being built along the road where the probably
where the minor subdivision was approved.
Yeah. That's already got activity.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
I think I saw one foundation and one that was getting ready to.
Ditches have been poured through there.
Okay.
Through there too.
All right. Anyone else have any other questions? All right, hearing none, this is for consideration and action.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to approve PB 12-20 as amended due to the consistency with the 2006 land use plan, and that request is reasonable and in the public interest, promotes orderly growth and development.
And I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consideration and action, PB 1219, Barry Nelms, request to amend the new Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 5, Development Standards to allow off-premises directional signs. Mr. Woody.
And I have a couple of items of information related to this as well. Real quickly, this is a text amendment to establish off-premise directional signage in Currituck County. Right now, last meeting, we presented a variety of staff options, and of course, Mr. Nelms has presented an option for your consideration as well. I'm not going to get back into all that, but just to give a refresher real quickly, the businesses must be commercially zoned and located along a waterway. Staff had proposed the Currituck Sound and Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway. The signs, which are off-premise, must also be located in a commercial zoning district that adjoins a major arterial street, which is like 168, 158, etc. And then those two properties, the property on the water and the property on the major arterial, must be under the same ownership. And those are, again, things that staff has proposed. A maximum of one off-premise directional sign per business, and this is prohibited on the Outer Banks. We're not considering the Outer Banks tonight. We provided a map last time that showed a lot of parcels that were zoned GB. And we also had a spreadsheet that kind of showed the breakdown of those parcels. I'm not going to make you look at the map, but I'm going to summarize it. There was a lot of questions on this last time. In Currituck County, there's 75, this is the mainland, 75 commercially zoned properties that have frontage on a body of water. That's any body of water. That's a sound, a bay, a river, a creek, a canal. 75. Of those 75, 25 of those parcels also have frontage on a major arterial. That excludes them. Because remember, this ordinance is off-premise directional signs, so your business property has to be on the water, but it can't be on the major arterial. So that leaves us 50 properties in Currituck County that are zoned GB or LBH, limited business, and have frontage on some type of waterway. So to take that to the next level of analysis, of those 50 that are zoned that way, we only have 7 that have existing businesses on them. So we could find 7 properties that are zoned commercial, exist on some type of waterway, and then provided, I don't know if they all own other properties on major arterials, but there's 7 that could be eligible for this off-premise directional signage allowance. Pearl's Restaurant on Knott's Island, Toll's Bay Marina, which is on a creek. It's not actually on the Currituck Sound. Midway Marina and Motel, which is on the Coinjock Canal. Krabby's Restaurant, which is on a separate parcel and also on the Coinjock Canal. Coinjock Marina and Restaurant, which is on the Coinjock Canal. Barry's on Walnut Island, which is on the Currituck Sound. And surprisingly enough, the Point Golf Club actually meets this definition too. It has frontage on the Currituck Sound. So those are the 7 parcels that would exist today, and depending on how you structure the ordinance, may have the ability to take advantage of this.
And
that's all I have to add at this point.
Could you not structure the ordinance and say those businesses that are operating as of right now, and then that takes all those others off the table?
You could. That's partly why I think I showed this slide. So,
okay. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Woody? All right. Hearing none, I will ask the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to approve PB 12-19 due to its consistency with the 2006 land use plan, and that the request is reasonable and in the public interest and promotes orderly growth and development with the following conditions. Maximum size of the sign will be 64 square feet. That's 2 4x8 sheets of plywood, which is double the minimum I think that they had talked about. The second, which would cover Mr. Nelms, is within 2 miles of the intersection, which I think Mr. Nelms is 1.7, so I think it'll fall into that category. And it has to be limited to businesses existing on January 1st, 2013. That's my motion for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item C, consideration and action PB 06-45 Currituck Crossing, request for a preliminary plat extension for 48 lots within 3 phases in Poplar Branch Township. Mr. Woody, is this not consistent with the other requests that we've had for extension?
Yes, sir.
So is there anything you need to add?
No, sir. Staff finds they meet the criteria outlined for an extension.
Motion for approval.
Have a motion for approval.
Second.
Second. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under new business, consideration of interlocal agreement with Currituck County Schools for certain school improvements and conveyance of property to Currituck County. Mr. Scanlon.
Mr. Chairman, we have shown you before the master plan out at the Maple Commerce Park. We've talked about the county needs to move forward with building Barco Parkway, which would be the new heavy truck entrance into the Commerce Park. And we've also talked about doing some improvements at Central Elementary School. The way the school is accessed off of 158 today is not the most safe design. We think we can improve that. And lastly, we've talked about the need to relocate the current location at the airport of where buses are parked and move it into the future site of where the bus garage is going to be. Most of these improvements are on property that's currently owned by the Board of Education. Being since the county is undertaking this project and we are the permit, the applicant, we are required to have ownership of the property. To secure these permits, also, we'd like to own the property that we're building on. General statutes in North Carolina, the Board of Education has concurred. They're in agreement to transfer the property to the county. But the general statutes do require the boards of education, when they declare a property surplus and they dispose of it, they are to receive just compensation for that property. So what you have in front of you tonight is an agreement between the Board of Education and the county commissioners that lays out the Board of Education's willingness to transfer the property to the county's willingness to accept that property. In exchange for accepting that property, the improvements that I just mentioned, the new bus garage parking area, the improvements to the parking or the entrance into Central Elementary School, and the last one actually that's mentioned is connecting that Central Elementary School to the new wastewater plant, which is actually already done, that those 3 elements would be undertaken by the county, and the value of that would be recognized as the value of the property to be exchanged for the county. And with that, and the Board of Education, my understanding, has already seen this. They've already adopted this, and it's in front of you tonight for consideration, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for the manager? Anyone have any? And this is just going to cause the connectivity and everything that's happening out there to work.
Yes, sir.
Is basically what this does.
Yes, sir.
All right. We have no questions. I will ask for a motion.
I move to approve.
I have a motion for approval.
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C is consideration of ordinance prohibiting sky lanterns. Would that be Mr. McCree?
I'll present that one, Mr. Chairman. It has become very popular on the Outer Banks, in particular, for persons to, in association with special events, launch what are known as sky lanterns into the air in celebration of something. A sky lantern is described as an open flame that is fueled by some fuel cell or other source of fuel. The heat from the open flame inflates what is also described as a rice paper type of balloon bag. These things are then, once they fill up with the hot gas from the candles, are released into the air in order to go and land wherever they go and land. Of course, this is causing some concern because of the potential fire risk and danger, in particular on the Outer Banks, because of the high winds and the dry vegetation during many times of the year. So this ordinance would prohibit the use and launching of these sky lanterns in Currituck County. This ordinance is based upon a similar ordinance adopted by our neighbor to the south, the town of Duck, which also has now regulated and prohibits the use of these types of entities or these types of balloons to be used within their county, or their town. So this is recommended to you for your consideration and approval.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I asked to have this put on the agenda out of concern and some suggestions and requests from some people on the Outer Banks, especially, as Mr. McCree said. As we well know, I mean, I've done some research on these things. I don't know how in the world we've allowed them for as long as we have. If you read the safety precautions that the manufacturers even put out, it says do not use anywhere as the wind is over 5 miles an hour. I would like for someone to tell me any time on the Outer Banks the wind is less than 5. And it also says strictly prohibited in anywhere there is vegetation, heavy vegetation. Our dunes are just, a fire trap waiting to happen. So anyhow, with that being said, I will move to approve this.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is board appointments. Appointment of Commissioner to Recreation Board.
I think I have one, and I would like to defer that to the next meeting. I've talked to 2 people. I'm waiting for an answer. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is for a commissioner.
I am.
to
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
I would like to.
Are you volunteering?
No, sir.
Okay.
I've been there and done that.
I would like to go ahead and appoint or recommend for appointment Kevin McCord to take the ex officio seat on the Recreation Board, which is a vacancy that I'm, stepping off of.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And your no doesn't count, Kevin, if you vote no.
He'd be a good man for that job.
Then we have appointments to Airport Advisory Board. The first one is Mr. Idlet.
I would like to reappoint the
Robin Hutchins.
current appointee I have, Ms. Hutchins.
Okay. Well, you want to do all these in one fell swoop, Mr. Griggs?
I'd like to appoint Ray Griggs.
Mr. Petrie?
Jerry Molesky. Jerry Molesky, reappoint him. Jerry Molesky.
Ms. Gilbert?
I would like to appoint John Snowden.
And Paul Martin?
Barbara Courtney.
We'll do all these in one motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next is appointments to Economic Development Board. Mr. McCord, you have Dr. Cornet as your appointment. Unless you have someone else.
From the notes, it looks like he has met his term. So
his term is up.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It says on here that he
I don't think
can
so.
be reappointed.
Yeah, he can be reappointed. He's only been on it 2 years.
Is his term up, Ms.
His
King?
first term is expired 1 of 2013, which gives him an additional term to serve, according to the documentation we have.
If you fill the term, he can go again.
Okay.
I'd like to reappoint him.
Okay, and then Ms. Gilbert.
I would like to reappoint Rosa Thompson. Rose.
Okay, that's the 2 appointments. Motion to approve those.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next one is Recreation Advisory Board, and Mr. Idlet, you want to defer?
Yes, sir. That's me.
Since you were volunteering the first time, I was making sure.
I would have volunteered, but I've done that already.
Okay, Mr. Petrie, your person cannot be reappointed, so you have an appointment.
Michael Payment.
Okay, and Marion Gilbert, Mr. Piquel may be reappointed.
I'd like to reappoint Charles.
And Paul Martin, Mr. Freethy.
Yes.
Okay, that is our appointments. We have a motion.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 And then we go to, that was recreation, tourism. Let me see who this is.
It's Mr. Griggs.
Okay, Mr.
And
Griggs.
I'd like to defer that to a later meeting.
Okay, we're going to defer that. Next one is Board of Adjustments. That would be Mr. Griggs again.
And once again, I'd like to defer that to a later
We
meeting.
will defer that one to a later date. And then appointment to Planning Board is
Mr. Griggs.
Mr. Griggs.
Well, I'm just drawing a full house here. I will defer that as well.
Okay.
What's Mr. Kovac? Who was he appointed by?
That was, we reappointed Ms. Bell.
We've already taken care of that.
Last
Okay,
meeting.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that takes care of those appointments. And then we have the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion for approval to the consent agenda.
I'll second that. No problem.
All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We'll now move to Commissioner's report, and Mr. Idlett, you want to go first? You look like you're eager tonight.
Oh, no, not too eager. As y'all well know, I will be leaving in the morning, going to the legislative agenda conference in Raleigh. I sent out an email to all you folks and asking if you had any comments or any suggestions or any preferences on any items that are coming before us, votes. I didn't get anything back, so I assume everyone is okay with the goals as they have been presented, and we have no anythings that we particularly want to present ourselves.
Mr. Idlett, I would ask to your consideration, if it comes up, protect the Second Amendment for the rights of the people of Currituck County.
Don't worry.
Thank you.
Do us proud.
And with that being said, that's all. I'll talk to Dan after the meeting.
Okay, Mr. Petrie.
Nothing to report.
Ms. Gilbert.
It's not going to be short and sweet. I've got lots to go over. The first thing that I want to comment on is the appreciation to Mr. McCree for coming to Shingle Landing on January 9th. This was a request by the homeowners to come in and meet with the HOA or the homeowners to discuss some questions that were presented to him and also to discuss the county's position on items of concern. So I just firstly want to again reiterate the appreciation to Mr. McCree. Second, I'd like to follow up on the Recreation Advisory Board. I have just come off of that board, but we are working with a program called WebTrack, which is a online system for scheduling and reserving like the picnic pavilions, registering for sports, parks, and recreations, and that should be available, I would say, mid-February, according to Mr. Weeks. Also, on Tuesday, January 29th, at the Currituck Senior Center, the Parks and Recreation staff will be presenting a grant application to be submitted to the North Carolina Parks and Recreation Trust funds. If received, this grant will help fund construction projects at the community center in Maple. I encourage any of the citizens that can attend that meeting on January 29th at the Senior Center at 6:30 p.m. to be there for this grant application. The Airport Advisory Board, I'd like to also just kind of update. We are working, aggressively working towards finding a solution on the need for hangars. So those persons that the 25 people are on the waiting list, we are still working on that. It's in motion, but we haven't come up with a final solution. Also, we have gone through airport rules. The advisory boards have discussed operations and also lease agreements. This has gone to the county attorney and come back, so once the advisory board has an opportunity to review them, they'll be forwarded to the Board of Commissioners for their final approval and adoption. Update on the Millioc Small Area Plan. The stakeholder committees have been notified, and according to Mr. Woody tonight, the majority of them have accepted that appointment. And lastly, I attended the Albemarle Commission last week, and this is another great resource in the community that we have. In addition to that, it was partnered with the Northeast Workforce Development Commission Consortium, and there's funds for continuing education. And as an HR professional, I realize and recognize the continuing education that is needed. So I am going to work diligently with this consortium to see where we can get some funds. Majority of the time, the funds are going to lower income counties, but we have some needs here that I think can be met, and I'm going to partner with the school systems and with the Workforce Development Consortium to see if we can't get some of those funds directed to Currituck County. Mr. Chairman, that's all for tonight.
Okay. Mr. McCord, do you have anything to report? Comments?
Nothing to report at this time.
Mr. Griggs?
Yeah, one comment if I could, and I hope it's appropriate at this point in time. But I'd like for the board in the future, near future, to consider getting together and putting together a resolution similar to Beaufort County's supporting the Second Amendment. I don't know at what appropriate forum we can do that.
It can be put on our next commissioner's agenda for approval. I have a copy of that resolution. I think Mr. Petrie has a copy of that resolution, and
It was emailed to all of us today.
it was emailed to all. I haven't checked my email.
Yeah.
So we can have that put on our next agenda.
Not necessarily to adopt in toto, but to maybe tweak it a little bit, or at the option of the board to accept it in toto.
That Mr. Manager and Ms. Keene will.
Yes, sir. Schedule it.
They will get with you and see that it's on the next agenda.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No further.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
And I'll just make one comment. If Pepsi-Cola can spend $1 million on a 30-second commercial to try to influence you to drink their product, how can we sit here and say that kids playing these violent video games and the filth that comes out of Hollywood is not affecting our young people if Pepsi will spend $1 million for a 30-second commercial? That's my only comment tonight.
I thought it was $3 million.
Oh, $3 million, whatever it is.
In the Super Bowl.
Mr. Manager, do you have anything to report?
Nothing tonight, thank you.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd ask for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second. All in favor, aye.
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 Thank you.
Yep.